Hello and welcome back to Remake Hot Take, the podcast where we play studio executives pitching remake ideas on our favorite and new media. I'm Marriya Schwarz.
And I'm Brooke Rees, and this week we are talking about the recent release. Was it direct to Hulu? I'm not sure if it was direct to Hulu or if this was a Hulu sponsored production, but
It was direct to me, so
direct to consumer, specifically Marriya. Quiz Lady, which we were doing this week because I saw clips of it on my TikTok For You page. And I was like, that looks interesting.
RIP TikTok For You page.
Specifically just for Remake Hot Take, because we have been shadow banned because we talked about Cocaine
We've
Bear.
been censored for Cocaine Bear, which is honestly the dumbest way to go as well.
It is. I mean, but also justice for Cocaine Bear. I mean, I think
I sent them an email that was like, I understand you have guidelines, but we are not speaking about the drug. We are speaking about the film. We are a movie podcast. How do you expect us to continue if we are censored under the guidelines? Can you unban our account?
I love that. You're like,
nothing yet.
You're like, we were actually talking about the feminist masterpiece. And we're also an animal rights welfare group. So you're actually censoring scientific education and the feminist movement at large.
They are.
So yeah, we won't be on your, no one's gonna see this. So we're talking out into the empty
And now
void.
They're asking me for my feedback on TikTok's email performance. Bad. It's bad. Did they didn't respond to me?
Well, then I guess that's just, can you even rate something's performance if they didn't perform?
Whoa.
you need to think about that as a teacher. Next time someone doesn't turn in an assignment, Marriya, you're just like, I can't even give this a 0 because not turning it in itself was a statement. Well, anyways, yeah, we watched this movie. I think it was released, from what I saw, maybe sometime in September, but they've just been advertising it. That's what
I had only heard about it now.
Yeah, that's what it said when you Google it, but I feel like those timelines are often off. I think that's maybe when it initially released to a few theaters or whatever, because that happens. It's
it says that it premiered at Toronto International Film Festival on September 9th.
Yeah.
And was released by 20th Century Studios via Hulu on November 3rd.
Okay. Yeah, because I was like, I only saw the marketing for this on my...
Isn't it crazy, the things that get direct to video? I don't know. Versus remember, it was just Cinderella reboots before when I was growing up, and now it's full-fledged movies. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole conversation in itself. I'm seeing a lot of people on film Twitter get upset, and which I think was part of these actors and writer strikes and everything, is the way that streaming has completely changed the landscape. And that was just for getting residuals and stuff, was the main thing that they were talking about. But I feel it's also changed the expectation of you can no longer even count on your movie being seen at all. They just what was it? It's the Acme Wile E. Coyote or whatever movie was just completely made, was ready to go, and Warner Brothers was actually, we're just not gonna have this film exist anymore, and they just completely shelved it and said it could never see the light of day.
They did that with the Brendan Fraser, what was it, Batgirl or something, one of the superhero DC comics they shelved, which
Warner Brothers, I guess,
with me,
has now had a notorious...
We're not brothers anymore. Warner strangers.
We're Warner associates. I'm slowly lowering the bar here. But yeah, Warner, what the fuck? Which brother is it that's making these decisions? But yeah,
I want to imagine that it's Warner from Legally Blonde, and then that checks out.
Yeah, it does. He's just he did graduate from law school, so he does have the legal system behind him, but his morals and his ethics are completely out the window. But yeah, people,
and he's dumb.
and he's dumb. People on Twitter, like film Twitter and film people that heard about Warner Brothers shelving the Wile E. Coyote film, they did like, I think, protest enough that Warner Brothers did agree to at least have the option of like pitching it, having the producers pitch it to like other studios or something that could maybe release it. So I guess there is power in protest in this sense. So that's good. But yeah, I think this like direct to Hulu kind of idea is something that's just totally new in this media landscape. And I feel like it was happening, you know, with COVID. That was like the expectation for a while. And then everyone was worried that like movie theaters were gonna die. And then like Tom Cruise was like, I'm single-handedly gonna like jump off as many cliffs as it takes to get the film industry back in the game. And then he did, and then everyone was like, movies are back, baby, and people were going to theaters. But yeah, I feel like there's also a stigma that like direct to DVD, direct to streaming releases are like shitty or like poorer quality or just like not deserving of a movie
Sometimes they
theater.
are.
Sometimes they
Your
are.
Place or Mine.
Yeah, Your Place. That one should have been a Wile E. Coyote situation. They should have gone to the final edit and been like, guys, we can't do this. We can't do this to Reese Witherspoon. She does not deserve this. But I loved this movie. If we want to jump into how we feel about it, I thought that this was like an adorable, well-written, funny
Quiz Lady
movie.
is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of movies that are not the movie that we're talking about.
We're just giving a general overview for for our film-minded people watching this podcast. But yes, recentering ourselves with the topic of today's pod, Quiz Lady. I felt like it did not live up to the stereotype of a direct-to-stream release. And I thought it was like very well done, very well written, funny, had me giggling, kicking my feet. It was great. I liked it. That was my overall opinion. Marriya, do you want to jump into your overall thoughts on it?
Good.
Good. Okay, so good, not great. You text.
I mean, it was good. I mean, I don't feel strongly about anything right now in my current life situation. So it could be great. It could be great. I just don't have that range of emotions right now. But yeah, I mean, woohoo.
You texted me, you were like, well, this film is good, but it brought out a lot of family angst. Was your Letterboxd review of this movie?
Well, I think like, you know, it didn't really comment on it exactly, but it did get into like the idea of, first of all, I don't know. Okay, and this might be like a mean thing to say, but I wasn't sure like how old like Sandra Oh was supposed to be, and I felt like that was like a strange casting because I was trying to figure out the entire time the age difference between them, because it seemed like if they're in Burbank and they're looking for a new place to live, she's probably not over like 18, right? Like the older sister. So she's probably like 17. And she says that, or 17 max. And the younger sister is 9. So they just like didn't look like they had an 8-year age gap. My sister and I have a 7-year age gap. So I know a little something about
I think
this.
they have a 10-year age gap.
Do they?
Yeah, that was my guess. I like pride myself on trying to guess what age like people are being cast as. And you're right, like Sandra Oh, I feel like she, at least that I've seen her in, I haven't really seen her in anything other than like Grey's Anatomy as like the very serious. I'm not a Grey's Anatomy watcher.
Princess Diaries principal.
Oh yeah. What is her name? Principal Gupta? Or yeah, Gupta.
Something.
I think that's her name. And then also I'm not a Grey's Anatomy's fan, but like my mom loved Grey's Anatomy. And so I got like a detailed play-by-play every time she would watch it. And what is she? Christina in Grey's Anatomy is like such a serious character. I would argue that Principal Gupta is also, she takes her job very seriously.
It does.
And then the only other role I think off the top of my head that I can remember Sandra Owen is Under the Tuscan Sun, which is like early 2000s, one of my mom and I's
Random one.
favorite film. Some might say her biggest performance to date, where she plays like a single lesbian mother who goes to Tuscany after her wife leaves her when she's like 9 months pregnant. But I thought it was a delightful change of pace for her, though. Like, she, from at least what I've seen more recently with Grey's Anatomy, to go from that like very serious role, and I think that's the role that a lot of people like associate her with.
It was also the mom in Turning Red.
Okay, but like to actually see her face like on screen though.
Yeah. You brought in Under the Tuscan Sun, and then I brought in the Panda movie, and suddenly, ooh, that's off base.
Well, we were talking about live action film. You can't really tell how old someone is by their voice on this.
But she plays an older mom.
Yeah. And I think she's still playing like an older character, but she is like an older character that very clearly is like they're making her seem irresponsible and immature, and she like does not have her shit together. But I really liked that from her. I thought it was like a delightful change of pace, and I really loved her performance. But yeah, I had guessed that they were 10 years apart, and then they were 10 years apart. It said it at some point in the film. She was like, I can't remember when it says exactly their age gap, but yeah, I think it's 10 years.
Yeah, but I think it also like got into like the idea of being like I wasn't like a surprise, you know, I was like a planned child. I mean, I
Okay.
wasn't a mistake like initially. I think later on they were like, oops. But
you weren't a mistake at birth. It was like when you hit 3 years old.
yeah, they're like, should have thought a little bit more about that one. But I think it gets into like the idea of, you know, being that super young kid when like all of your cousins are super old, and being like the only one. That was definitely like my experience with like my extended family, is like I was, you know, the quote unquote weird one because I was like 4 years younger than the youngest person there. And so it's like everyone was talking about high school, and so I was like the weird quiet one, because what did I have to say about high school when I was like 10? And then I get to high school and I'm like, oh my God, everyone's going to be talking about high school, and I'm finally there. And then they're all talking about college. So it's like that kind of also like alienation of being like the youngest, and being on like a completely different wavelength of like to anyone else in your family, like sibling wise and stuff, completely different like period of life, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it,
and you can relate to that as your own child.
Yeah, I was about to say,
I feel like you bring up only child like every
I'm like, oh man,
you keep picking sibling movies,
I
I feel like you're sad.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that. I was like, we bring this up every pod, but I am an only child, and I watched this movie a couple days ago with my roommate, and my roommate is even more of a unique sibling. She's a triplet, and I was like, isn't it fun that like one of my best friends in the world will never love me as much as she loves her brother and sister, because you've like shared a womb. And I feel like the twin relationship is like the closest bond that you can have. Like we just talked about it in Hill House, and then my roommate was like, yeah, like it is. And I was like, that's unfortunate for me. I feel like there's, you know, I feel like it's
well,
like,
do you love me more than your parents?
I mean, I think that it's different though for like a parental relationship versus a sibling relationship, because
I feel like sibling relationships are different than friend relationships.
Yeah, and I think what I was getting at was like, I think, at least from what I understand, just like observing
Casual observer.
as like a researcher, like a scientific.
I can just see you like standing in the window outside my home.
Yeah,
with a notebook.
I'm like, okay, so this pairing here, 7-year difference. How does that affect the? You know what's funny? In college, in one of my psychology classes, I actually did do research on only children versus sibling dynamics. Like I have actual data specific to a College of William and Mary sample size. But anyways, I think like from what I've observed, it's nice to have a sibling where, you know, it's 50-50 if your sibling will like get along with you or if you're like BFFs or just casual friends or if you hate each other's guts. But it is like a relationship where you guys can like fight and like absolutely say like the meanest things to each other, and then you'd be like, hey, do you want to like get McDonald's, or like you've just absolutely like fist fought and we're screaming at each other, and then they're like, oh, do you want Starbucks? Maybe this is just unique
I
to
don't know. I can't relate to whatever you're doing. I think you saw a movie.
No, this is my like childhood friendships, relationships with their siblings. But
yeah, they're like, there's a domestic violence assault, and then they're in the back of the cop car, and they're like, hey, you want to get McDonald's?
Maybe
that's the classic sister moment.
Okay, maybe my data has been skewed this whole time. Because what I was gonna say is that like it is super nice in my opinion to have someone like a sibling who like loves you unconditionally, because I feel like friendships isn't unconditional love, you know what I mean? Like I feel like it is conditional. Like if your friend were to like treat you poorly,
one step out of line, Brooke, and you're out.
Marriya, you're this close. I have my list of demands, and if they don't get met, I'm removing you from my phone. But it is, I mean, like with my parents, at least, like it's different, but I could like say anything to my parents, they would still like step in front of like a bullet for me or something.
Oh.
Do you? And then I texted you during the movie and I said, like, do you think you have like a super close relationship with your sister? And you were like, I guess. So
yeah, I don't really think about it.
Yeah. But like she would probably take a bullet for you, right?
I think so. But we're definitely not like this, not like the quiz lady. I feel like we have definitely different personalities, but more similar than whatever these two were doing. We also don't have a dog, so
a shared dog that the one sister just kind of gave up. Well, yeah, so we have been like exploring some sibling dynamics and relationships the past couple movies, but I did just really love there were like a lot of great one-liners in this film. And I really liked this like idea that the main character Annie is this person that like is completely invisible until she goes like viral on the internet. Which is,
I hate her and her like coworkers. Like they're just like, I don't know. That just made me so angry.
Yeah, her coworkers suck, especially like at least at the end she starts to stand up for herself a little bit. But the part where they were like literally eating their lunch like in the open cubicle next to her because they had like no regard for her as a person, made me angry. But she showed them. She ended up winning, not only at the quiz but at life.
Wow. Do you think you would win in a game show?
I was gonna ask you, one of the questions I was gonna ask was, if you went on a game show and they had like the category, what's a category that you know that you would like absolutely dominate? I think in general, I did you do like scholarship challenges or quiz like league stuff throughout high school?
No.
We did.
No.
I did it was called Scholarship Challenge, and it was like
Did you get a scholarship?
No, but it was hosted. I don't know why it was called that, actually. No,
it was a scam.
Now that I think about
it was clickbait.
Yeah, I don't know why was it called that, but it was hosted by like our local radio And it was like a quiz league thing. I am not the best at it, but I was on the team. That's how I would like summarize that experience. I was there, I was along for the ride, and I think I answered one question, and it was the answer was like orange is the new black. And then the other thing that I answered was leaves of grass, which I don't even know. That's a book, I think, and I don't know what it's about, but
Walt Whitman.
it was somehow in my mind. And I said leaves of grass, and that was the correct answer. But we did win. Our team won. And I have like
And you didn't get a
I
scholarship.
didn't get a scholarship, but we got actually, yeah, where did that maybe we did get a scholarship. They brought out a huge check. Like we held a huge check. I don't know who got that money though. Did I?
You didn't get them.
Maybe it was proportional to the amount of questions that we answered correctly.
So you got like 10
So
cents.
I got like a crisp $20. It was like $10 per question. Man, maybe I have like amnesia, or maybe I just wasn't asking the right questions in these moments. Marriya, you had to be there because you would have rolled up to the scholarship challenge. You would have been like, number one, what is the scholarship? And then they bring out the giant check, and you're like, they're splitting that evenly, right? Like, do you need my like bank account info? No, I was just happy to be there. I was just happy to be taking a photo with a giant check.
You were like, maybe these are my siblings.
Really, I do get myself into a lot of situations just trying to find someone who will love me unconditionally. But you know, my only picture of unconditional love is just like beating the shit out of her out of each other, and then
going to
going to
McDonald's.
McDonald's afterwards. So this is why I am incapable of a healthy relationship. But I think I would dominate at like specifically like a Harry Potter like.
That's what I was thinking too.
And I mean, we did a bunch of like quiz league-ish trivia games and trivia nights.
Mhm.
You were really good at Harry Potter though, because you like remembered like the row number or whatever. It was like row 97.
Yeah, but no one listened to me about the prophecy row.
You
I
did.
said it, and then no one listened to me.
I don't remember not listening, but I remember you did get it right. But I think it would have to be specifically like Harry Potter books, because I listened to like the Audible books like pretty much constantly in the background. So I feel like a lot of
I think I would be movies because
yeah, you would be
I
like
haven't
Oscars.
reread the books in a while.
Yeah, you would do really good at like an Oscars category or just film in general.
Brendan Fraser.
You do good at a Who's Your Daddy? The nepotism category. You would.
I think we could do good at like Stranger Things or like The Office or Friends, like something like all like TV. I don't think I could do like sports.
No.
Travis Kelce, the Chiefs, like that's the only, I think that's the only football team, I believe.
That's the only one that exists.
That's the only one.
Because Taylor said so.
And everyone else is just auditioning to get into the Chiefs.
Everyone else is just hoping that they get a pop star girlfriend on the team, because she, like, I will say, I knew nothing about Travis Kelce and the Chiefs before this happened. That's not a reflection.
Put him on the map.
Yeah, that's not a reflection of his fame. That is a reflection of my ignorance. But hey, it worked. If football was needing to, cater to a different demographic, I think they found it. Yeah, so I think we'd be good at pop culture.
Would you be good at psychology?
What kind of psychology questions would it be? Would one of them be like, do you
What's
think your
wrong with
mother
your
loves
brain?
you? Yeah. It just keeps going, and it's actually just like, it's not questions that have an answer. It's just intense like relationship
It's just
questions.
WebMD searches. If I combine these two medications, what will happen?
It's like, hey, like if yeah, it's like if you don't check that you've turned off the stove 17 times, which member of your family will die in a horrible accident, and whose fault will it be? Yours. So I think I'd be great at that category, actually. But yeah, I mean, do we want to like talk about any specific moments from the film that really stuck out to us? one of the things that I thought was hilarious was then, like the not nursing home, but like assisted living or retirement community, whatever, that had called him up and was like, "Hi, is this Anne?" And she was like, "Yes." And she was like, "I'm so sorry, we've lost your mother." And then the joke, she was like, "Oh my God, I phrased that so poorly. Like, she's not here anymore." Let me tell you, that exact same thing happened to me, not with my mother, but it was with my childhood dog. Her name was Hime, and this was in freshman year of college. My parents and I had gone on spring break to Hilton Head, and we were like driving back. My parents had just dropped me back off at college, and they were on the road, and my friend's mom called and she was like, "Hi, Deb. Like, we're so sorry. Like, we lost Hime." And Hime was like 17 years old. She was one of those dogs where, like, when you babysit her, we're like, okay, so her heart will stop several times. Just give her a vigorous shake and it'll start again. She's blind. She's deaf. She can't walk. She can't pee on her own. Good luck. So
Her disability is not a joke, Brooke.
well, it wasn't less of a disability, more so like she should have been euthanized a solid like
My
year.
God.
We let her like her shelf life was way past the expiration date. But we loved her and she was okay. The vet said she still liked eating and like, sitting next to us. So, I mean, I wouldn't want someone to kill me if I still had like a love of ice cream.
How does the doctor know she likes sitting next to you?
Well, she observed us and she was like, she seems at peace.
She was like, I'm taking notes on what an only child is like.
Yeah, no, in fact, I literally we did a speech class, a speech making class in high school, and everyone we had to do one on like someone in our family that meant a lot to us, and everyone did their siblings, and I did it on Hime. I did it on my 18-year-old blind cataract ridden dog because she was like a second sibling. Well, like my only sibling. She was like a second child in the family. But anyways, so she was like knocking on death's door multiple times. And so our friend that was watching her while my parents were on spring break with me, she literally called and she was like, "We've lost Hime." And my mom was like, oh, that's okay. Like, was she alone? Like, blah, blah, blah. And my friend was like, no, like, she's not in the house anymore." We were like, "What do you mean?" So she had this like,
You buried her already.
yeah. We were like, "That's so kind of you. We were gonna cremate, but if you got the hole in the backyard, more
Imagine you just make all those decisions. That's like the wildest, like, dog sitter ever.
I feel like they really took control of the situation. They're like, "We already had the funeral, flowers were on the grave. I'll show you the spot out back." But we were like, "Oh, was she alone?" She's like, "No, she's not in the house." And he may have like this like doggy door and that was from my room that led out to this like fenced in side yard. And our one friend who shall not be named, like this dog was so old that we had to have like multiple people come on like different shifts. It was literally like elderly care. Like you couldn't ask one person to do too many days in a row because it was too stressful. So the one friend that had been there the night before had left the fenced in backyard open, and poor little
Oh my God.
Hime, so she again, keep in mind, blind, deaf, bad hips. Like she went out to her little backyard to go pee pee and poo poo, and the friend left the gate open. So at some point in the middle of the night, Hime wanders off into the abyss. And I just like to think that from her, this has a happy ending if anyone's getting scared. So I just like to think it's hilarious that from Hime's perspective, she could not differentiate like the great outdoors from like our living room because she couldn't smell, she couldn't see. So I like to think that in her mind, she was like, when did the kitchen get so big? Like she just kept walking. And my mom was like, "Oh my God." And all these friends back home, my parents were still trying to drive from Hilton Head back to Pennsylvania. And while they were driving there, our like 18-year-old Ford truck broke down, and it broke down
The
like
same age as the
the
dog.
same age as the dog. It was a bad year. It was a bad year for 18-year-old things, and their truck broke down. They had to go back to Williamsburg, Virginia, rent a car, and then head back to Pennsylvania. And oh wow, bringing it all back. People put we put like an advertisement on the local radio that had hosted Scholarship Challenge. His name was Chuck. Chuck died tragically a few years later. But
He wandered out of the back fence.
Chuck got out of his enclosure. No, Chuck was like the local radio personality, and someone like called in and said like lost dog, be on the lookout. And so he was like a bit of a celebrity in the small town, so they got it on the radio. And then someone found Hime. And what's also really funny is that they found her like a couple miles away from her house. So big couple of days for her. She thinks she was missing like 3 days. And
Wow.
someone had called in that they thought a dog had been like hit, because it was like she was like limping on the side of the road. They were like, dog's in bad condition, she's clearly been hit by a car like multiple times. And then my mom went and picked her up from the shelter, and she was like, oh no, that's just her like arthritis. She's like, that's just her bad hip. Like, she definitely was not, this was not a case of like vehicular manslaughter. It was just a case of like not having her Humira. So we got Hime back. But yeah, I thought it was just hilarious that within the first 5 minutes in the movie, I was like, wow, I've had that exact same experience of being called and thought that someone was dead, but actually they had just wandered off. Hime wasn't much of a gambler, but she was gambling with her life, like the mother. Which also brings me back to another question that I wanted to ask, which is a central theme of this movie, is like, you've never had a pet, but just imagine for a moment, like, what lengths would you go to save your dog or whatever pet you had? Because Annie, quiz lady, she's conquering her anxiety, she's getting out of her shell, and she's blossoming into the person she's meant to be, all for her little 18-year-old dog. Oh, which is another central theme of
Well,
this movie. Linguini is
I've
also on his last legs.
I've often thought about people with dogs. I think from my observations, I would say that they often get into fist fights with their dog and then say, we're going to go to McDonald's after. I don't
Yeah.
know if that is true or if that is just the films.
It's a little bit of both. The films exaggerate that a little bit. Pete is never happy with the fist fights that me and my sibling dog Hime got into.
But I can't imagine being in that scenario. I don't know.
Personally, I would have perhaps let Linguini live out his last days, because one of the best twists of this movie is that the like Asian gangster, the like Tong member or whatever, is actually like an avid animal rights activist, and he is
Mhm.
giving Linguini. I thought that was just the funniest twist on this that they could do. Because I feel like that's like, like a common like hostage theme, and they're so worried about what's happening to the dog, and then they decide to go in this totally opposite route where he's bankrupt because he has rescued so many animals. But Mr.
I like to
Linguini,
imagine that that is the spinoff for dogs. Like that, was it the Dog Hotel or Dogs Hotel,
yeah,
whatever that movie is with um Emma Roberts.
yeah, I never saw it, but
Hotel for Dogs. Hotel for Dogs.
but I saw the commercials for it. But yeah, Mr. Linguini is getting Wagyu beef. I can't afford to give him that
But
lifestyle.
also like they're low on money and they're giving the dogs Wagyu beef.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe an accountant? Like I don't know.
You're
I
like,
don't know. I just things aren't adding up. Like,
yeah,
do we need a professional masseuse for that one dog, or can we just like
yes.
rub his belly sometimes, like pro bono? Like, do we
No.
need?
See, this is how you can clearly tell you're not a pet owner, because if I was in serious financial trouble and Mr. Linguini looked at me with his beautiful little brown eyes, I would be spending like $100 an ounce on Wagyu beef and I would be getting the personal masseuse. So no, I think he's spending his money in exactly the right places. And in an alternate time span for me, I could see myself potentially becoming a gang member to afford my pets the lavish lifestyle that they deserve. Um, but personally, Mr.
Yeah,
Link,
but if someone stole your bunnies, what would you do?
well, if they that's what I was gonna say. If someone had Mr. Linguini, but they sent me the video of him like in a fur coat eating Wagyu beef, having the time of his life, looking absolutely content, it would be like an adoption situation. Like I would have to be like, I'm like I'm a single teenage mom and I love this baby, but I think that this family can provide more. So in that scenario, I'm just letting Mr. Linguini ride it out. Like he doesn't have that
Mm.
long. It's like a similar Hime situation. He probably doesn't know where he is. He is cataract and deaf. So he just thinks that
What does
like
the gang do if you don't have a pet?
what is the what?
Are they like powerless? Like, is the gang powerless against you if you don't have a pet?
Yeah. It seems like he really just goes after the dogs. So I think if you're like a cat household, you're totally fine. They can't get any collateral. He's like, I'm actually interested in dogs only. I'm sorry. But yeah, so I thought that was another really fun twist. And then we touched on it briefly, but I loved Sandra Oh in this role. And she's playing about like 10 years younger than she actually is, but I think she pulled it off. And I was like, she looks good. And
Yeah, I think I just struggled to get into it at first because
mhm,
like her character is so like it's like 100, like it's not even like in the scale of like 1 to 100. It's like 100 all the time. So I like struggled a little bit to get into that mode.
you mean like
But I think as
her
she's just like
performance is always
intense.
very on? Yeah.
Yeah, and just like very like screaming every line and all of that stuff. So it wasn't like there was like a range, and like I understand that that is like the point of the character, but I think in the beginning, based on like what I knew of Sandra Oh's character and her acting work, it was like a little jarring.
Mhm.
It was hard to see the mom from Turning Red do that.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought she was doing a great job. I loved her like fashion sense in this. I was like, man, she is homeless and she is waiting on that, what is it, Choochies money?
Mm.
But she is not letting that stop her from having a fabulous wardrobe. And I loved every single outfit that she had. Um, I thought another funny moment was when she like posts the clip and Quiz Lady Annie goes viral, and I loved, like, all of the article names, like, if you stop to, like, read all of them, because I feel like that's how it is, like, every time we post a clip on TikTok and people are, like, writing in-depth think pieces about it. It was like, "Does this, like, support Asian discrimination?" and blah, 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 and it was, like, these hate article titles and these, like, in-depth things, and I was like, "Yeah, that's, like, what happens every time we post about Spy Kids 3 or something that has absolutely no bearing, on serious things in this world. Um, Another one that I thought was funny was when she's like, Annie is like absolutely like tripping balls on whatever meds that Jenny has given her so she can relax and do the audition process. And I love how she's trying to like pull it off and say like, oh, she's diabetic. I need to give her diabetes medication so she stops like acting so weird. And the doctor's like, that's not going to control her symptoms. And she was like, are you a doctor? And he was like, yes. And she was like, are you a diabetes doctor? And he was like, yes. And that was like one of the funniest like lines that I've seen in a while. I just thought that was hilarious.
And it's
Um,
not like a 2020 era comedy movie without a drug imagination scene.
yeah, they have been doing a lot of those. I really like them though. I think they're very
For
fun.
two people who don't do drugs.
Yeah. Who knows? I hope that like if I
Or like
start doing
tripping on
them,
Claritin.
had too much Allegra today. Um, Yeah, so I really liked that scene. I loved Ben Franklin and the historical inaccuracies of Ben Franklin had to do some character work himself. He had to think
I
about his
mean,
motivation.
it did remind me, I think, of Colonial Williamsburg, where it's like they're all like. I mean, I don't think Colonial Williamsburg is very intense. Like you'll walk by and they'll be like, "Oh, my car didn't start today," and it's like, "Do you mean your cart? Do you mean your cart?"
Do you mean your
Um,
horse was tired today, ma'am? Stop ruining the
and then
illusion.
they'll take your credit card and like be like, "We take Visa," and it's like, "What's that? Is that a parchment? Like what is that?" Like, I don't know. It's not as intense, but I could see the kind of comparison. I think also with like historical things, like I wanted to know when he was Benjamin Franklin. Like in what era is he Benjamin Franklin? Because I think that's also like the problem with a lot of these like historical experience things, like Colonial Williamsburg. When is it Colonial Williamsburg? Because some of them you'll go in and there'll be like the war is happening. Other places you'll go in Colonial Williamsburg, they're like, the war is over. Other places will be like, yeah, it's like in the middle. It's in the before the war, the middle of the war, and the end of the war in all different places. And it's like we just need like a message board to like get on the same level or something, or like the news. I don't know.
So do you think it is? I like to imagine that they are all in the same time period. It's just that the walk, like from the beginning of Colonial Williamsburg all the way over to like the masonry and the courthouse, that's too far of a walk for them. So
Paul
they're
Revere is
really out of
trying.
date. They
Paul Revere, he's making the rounds, but it just hasn't gotten there yet.
this is why they need town meetings. They're like, everyone, just an update, war officially over.
Well, in colonial times, the town meetings were church, so
That's true.
people just aren't going to church anymore.
Yeah. We've lost God and we've lost the word of mouth.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's funny. This is a complete tangent, which is so unlike me. But I was just thinking about how like when I was in Italy and these churches were like gorgeous. And can you imagine being like a peasant with like, I don't know, some diseases and like a 20-year lifespan? Like I would also be going to church. Like church would be great. Church is like the center of the town and it would be a
I mean, at
place.
least you get to like drink the blood of Christ.
Yeah, you get a little bread, you get some wine, you're in a pretty like stained glass, like warm building and you're talking with all your friends. Like I would be the churchiest church person ever. I would get so into it. It would be like an extracurricular activity.
Snack and gossip.
Yeah, literally like snack, update on the town drama, do a little prayer and like you're good to go. It would be fantastic. But like now we just have like Twitter
Yeah.
for all of that. So I can see why the religious people are worried. So one thing, like I obviously am not the spokesperson for talking about the like subtleties of depicting like Asian American culture on screen. Like if anyone didn't get that, I should not be the expert here. But I did think that they did like a really good job of having these like
Based on your experience.
based on my experience as an Asian American woman. um I let me just say like I thought that it was really funny to me. It seemed like what they were trying to do, like what seemed to be a recurring theme, at least they used Jenny, like the older sister played by Sandra Oh, as she like uses her Asianness to like get her way sometimes, basically like relying on white people's ignorance of Asian American culture to get like to further herself and to get advancements. And I thought it was really funny the way that they played off of that and played off of stereotypes. So like Jenny seems to be someone that's like always like on the edge and like ready to point out like someone's racism. And so it was like when she clearly is being like a reckless driver and she has put Annie in the trunk and then she's like driving on the wrong side of the road and it's like so funny, and she like says to the car that like honks at her and says like learn how to drive. And it's playing off of like an Asian stereotype that Asian people don't know how to drive or can't drive well. And then the car like pulls up, and she like calls him out, and she's like, "You're a racist." And then he pulls up, and it's like another Asian person. It's like another Asian man. And that was like one really funny instance. And then one where they're like particularly playing off of like white people's ignorance was also in that audition sequence scene. And like Annie says something like crazy because she's tripping balls, and she's like, the clouds are gonna die, or like the clouds are gonna, like, we've spared the clouds, or something like that. And Jenny's still trying to cover for her, and she's like, oh yes, like an ancient Chinese saying, like the clouds are not gonna die, like it's great. And then they like pan to another like Asian person that's in the audition crowd, and he's like, this is not a thing. So I thought that was really funny. And then at the end, it kind of comes full circle when we have what's the like big contestant, Ron is his name?
Fuck Ron, yeah.
Yeah, Ron is at the end there, and it kind of comes full circle because Ron is like actually racist and says like the first like actually racist thing in the movie. He's like, oh, you're doing some sort of like Asian mind meld or whatever when they win at charades. And Jenny even says, she's like, oh, actual racism. So I thought that was like a really funny reoccurring theme throughout the movie that I think they like played off really well. Did you have anything else? I have one like criticism of this movie that I can talk about before we move into remakes.
I just had to say, I do love when movies like involve like, I don't know, come back to different characters. Like I liked how everyone from her journey is like watching. Like I like when movies like Booksmart, everyone kind of like comes back in the end, and I really like that. I also thought, what a strange final movie for the guy who played Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
What a strange way to go.
Yeah.
As Alan Cumming. And I also really liked the like kind of not like end credit kind of things, but like the end of like, where are they now? And like, she's a murderer, and like,
yeah, I texted you, that felt so Marriya, like specifically like the things that were written about the people. I was like, that is absolutely something that it feels like Marriya would write.
It is hard when everyone gets fajitas.
Yeah,
like tables just like aren't ready for that.
Yeah, they don't have the capacity. But yeah,
This
I
is
loved
like
that ending.
I mean, this is like one of the second best like food commentaries we've gotten from a comedy movie. I just always think about I don't know if you've seen Lovebirds. I think it's Lovebirds, where Kumail Nanjiani's character says, he's like, why do they give you the little extra milkshake bit? Like, why don't they just measure it to fit in the cup?
Yeah,
which is true.
That's true. I've never gotten an extra milkshake bit though.
Really?
Like,
you never get
never
like the
once in my
milkshake
life.
and then like a little like metal container of the extra milkshake?
No, maybe it's because I'm fat. Maybe they're like, maybe they're
Well, if you
like,
go to
"We'll
like a
keep
diner,
this."
you go to like a diner, they usually do it.
I thought it was interesting. I didn't know what direction they were gonna go because it's a movie that is building up. You know, this is kind of a general theme where movies that like build up an icon for a character that then they actually like meet in the end, and it can go one of two ways. The person that they want to meet is either like totally not what they expected, absolutely crushes their idealization of this person, or it could be like they live up to their expectations. So I wasn't quite sure how they were gonna have Will Ferrell play that off, because you know, at the center of this movie is like it's a story about kind of like a broken family, right? We have the dad who divorced the mom and then like died tragically, and it touches on the more like serious side of Asian culture with that. I think they said that their dad was Korean specifically, but that they went to their cousins that were on their dad's side of the family, and that there was this idea of like this Asian like in the Asian culture, this like shame and this guilt over their dad that had died because he died like not living up to expectations that they would have of the dad or of the man of the family, and that like in their culture even though he was dead, like they wouldn't even like mention his name, and how much that like was hurtful for especially like Annie being only like 8 or 9 years old. And so that was like an interesting, more serious take on describing like Asian culture, and I guess specifically the Asian American experience of like shame and guilt. I feel like those are two like common themes that are explored. But it was, at the center of it is this broken family, a mom who has like alcohol problems, has a gambling problems, has like gambled their life away, never took them seriously. And we see how like differently they react to that. So like Jenny, the older sister, is kind of following in her mom's footsteps, right? So she like Annie criticizes her for being irresponsible and not being like a full adult. And she's like this 45-year-old woman who's dressing like she's 20, and she never really grew up, and she's kind of following in the mom's footsteps. And then you can see Annie is the one that like idolized her dad, and she takes the complete opposite approach to having like an unstable family life. And she becomes extremely stable, picks a very boring like internal accounting job or whatever. Um, and she sees like this figure of Terry as her kind of like pseudo dad, and that's who she's watched every day growing up, and that's part of the reason that she watches it. So I was interested to see if they were going to have him like completely not live up to her expectations, or just be this sweet kind of dad figure, and they did the latter, which I thought was good. I thought, it ultimately fit for the more lighthearted nature of this like comedy movie. But it maybe would have been interesting to see like Terry be an asshole or something, and see her having to like even more so like find her own way and find her own purpose that was outside of the quiz game.
I felt like it was kind of a nod to like the Alex Trebek
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
So
it
that's why I
definitely
liked,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And the idea of like a younger co-host like taking over for the big star. And unfortunately with Alex Trebek, we didn't even get to have that like transitional ending, right? He unfortunately like passed away from what kind of cancer did he have? I think it was
What
cancer, right?
is, yeah, what is
Yeah, you have to
cancer? I
answer
don't
in
know.
question for him. Um, so yeah, obviously for people who are fans of Jeopardy, this was mimicking that in a lot of ways. And it would have been nice if we could have seen Alex Trebek, even though he did it for, decades, see him like go out on his own terms and not because of passing away from a terminal illness. But the only other criticism that I have is that Fran, played by Holland Taylor, I think she should have had her moment. I mean, she kind of had her moment because she met her idolized person, but I thought it was
Well,
like a
maybe,
good twist when they had her and she was good at charades. And I was like, that made me sad. I was like, oh, this is going to be her moment. And I know they had to switch it to show like how intimately they knew each other, even though Jenny wasn't like smart on the surface and she didn't know these things. But I still felt bad for Fran, and I think she should have had her
yeah.
moment.
Yeah, I like that we have that moment of like the little sister doesn't really realize how much the older sister does for them kind of thing. But maybe like she wins for like 90 more episodes. So maybe Fran is her like partner for like one of those.
That's true. Yeah, maybe. All right. Did we want to move into our remakes? So we just talked about it. I think that Fran needs her moment. If
Mhm.
she doesn't, if she isn't able to go on for one of the 99 shows that Annie goes on to win, I think that we should get Holland Taylor and her girlfriend Sarah Paulson in there. I think it should just be an after credit kind of thing. And I think it should be Sarah Paulson and Holland Taylor just as themselves, not even as different
Okay.
characters
Interesting.
in the celebrity edition of the quiz show. Um, because I think that learning that they were a couple was so enlightening to who Sarah Paulson is as a person,
Oh,
because they have like a 40-year age gap. It is so interesting. Anytime that happens with a celebrity, I'm always just intrigued. And not to be like ageist, but it is like especially interesting. Like the dynamics are totally different when it's like two women versus like an 80-year-old man. and like a 20-year-old woman. Like, you know what I mean? I was talking about this
Mhm.
too with like expectations of celebrity men. And it's so crazy. Like anytime there's a celebrity that's actually dating like a woman who's of a semi-appropriate age, we're like, congratulations, round of applause. Like Keanu Reeves is dating someone that's like a year younger than him. I'm like, we must bow down to the king. Like, I don't even know anything else about him, but he seems great. And the expectation of all celebrity men is like they will be 100 years old and they will still choose to date a 19-year-old. So I think
That's from Taylor Swift.
is it? Did she say that?
Yeah, she says something like, I grow older, but your girlfriends stay my age, or something like that, to Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. Yep.
Which
It's
we were talking about Travis Kelce last night.
mhm.
Me and my dad. This is just a little aside, and he was like, "I hope Travis Kelce doesn't break up with her the way that Paul Rudd did, which was over text." Which, one, Travis Kelce will never break up with her, but also where did Paul Rudd come into this?
I was gonna say he hasn't dated her, right?
I think he was trying to say Joe Jonas, but somehow we got to Paul
Oh,
Rudd.
okay.
You know
Classic
those
Greg
similarities.
mistake. Yeah. Easy to mix up. um, but yeah, so it's interesting when it's like two women because I feel like that doesn't often happen. We don't hear about that as much. That like wild age gap. And I just love them. I love Sarah Paulson and I just want to see them have their moment on the quiz screen. So I think that's our way of getting Fran back in action. It's
Is
just
Will Ferrell still Will Ferrell?
yeah,
Or
absolutely.
is he the or is Will Ferrell playing the same character? Is he Will Ferrell in the celebrity version?
I think we have him run back and forth between hosting and then also
Okay.
being a contestant as Will Ferrell. And I think he could do it. He could pull it off.
Okay.
Um, okay, so another option for a remake is that we instead of doing Quiz Lady, we have Quizlet Lady. So I don't know if you relied on Quizlet in high school for your studying needs. But I sure did. I think they now require like payment even for entry level Quizlet using.
Oh wow.
So that's a shame. Everything's behind a paywall these days. But I think that this is the same movie, but dramatically different in that she doesn't watch the quiz show and she doesn't make any money. She just really likes putting together like Quizlet packets for her own studying needs.
Or
Um
maybe she just looks at other people's as well. Like she's like,
yeah.
"Oh, I need to pass this AP bio exam
Yeah.
at 35 or whatever."
AP Bio was my most used like Quizlet thing because
Oh
all of
wow.
them were on there and my like teacher would just like pull questions from Quizlets. Like that's how they created their tests. So I was like, this is perfect. I don't need to use any knowledge. I just need to memorize the Quizlets. So yeah, I think it's Quizlet Lady is like the touching story of a woman with an even more extreme mental illness that just sits at home every day, has a little alarm go off, and then she hops over to the laptop, pulls up the iconic blue screen, and just starts flipping through those flashcards like it's nobody's business. Um, and then another thing that I think would have just absolutely, changed the game for this story. One of the like pivotal moments is the reveal that Annie was so uncomfortable with her cousins and felt so outcasted that she had to like dig a hole in the backyard and shit in the hole. I think that if we just add in like a Febreze bathroom spray, the whole situation goes away because I don't know if she was worried about them hearing. I think she mentioned hearing that she was in the
Mhm.
bathroom, but if she just like walks a little more stealthily and then we have like a good like a Poo-Pourri, like a Febreze, something that you put in like before um she could accomplish all of her needs and then Jenny can stay stay in Burbank. um she can stay in Burbank and fulfill her California dreams. So yeah, Poopery should have sponsored this movie and it would have been vastly different. And then the last one here is an obvious one. I think it should have been a Quiz Lady John Wick crossover. So
yeah, an obvious one.
very obvious. Everyone was thinking it, right? So I think the moment that Mr. Linguini gets stolen, Keanu Reeves like busts down the door of her like pathetic little apartment, and he's like, I know exactly how to handle this. And then the movie goes off in a very different but more important direction, about getting justice for Mr. Linguini. And it's it's Annie just absolutely gunning down everyone in her path. Multiple people are murdered. Like, no one is safe. Fran dies, Jenny dies. She has lost everyone in her family. But unlike John Wick, she gets Mr. Linguini back. It's basically John Wick if the people that came into his house didn't quite murder the dog, they just, captured him as a hostage. So I think that's another potentially more beautiful way that we could go.
Interesting.
All right, what are your remakes?
I was thinking that for one, maybe like she's not even interested in like a quiz show. Like she's just like she watches Naked and Afraid every day.
Yeah.
And so then she's forced to go on like Naked and Afraid because I think she has the afraid part down.
Yeah.
I think it's the naked that we have to work on, which is something that I feel like I relate to as well.
As someone with an anxiety disorder.
And she goes viral for the very wrong reasons, because she watches the show in the nude, and that's how her sister films her.
So does she end up on like a porn website?
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's OnlyFans, but only watching the show. And then I was also thinking, which I'm surprised you didn't have because this felt obvious to me. Instead of the dog, so Annie's video has come out, and she's sitting in her home, and there's like a small knock at the door, like very, very small, like just very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
And she opens the door, and there's a little rat. And he introduces himself as Remy, and he says, your mom had gambling debt, and they took my friend Linguini.
Oh no.
And so then Annie has to do the show, but she also wears like a tall hat, almost like a chef's hat.
Yeah.
And she doesn't get the knowledge necessarily from Remy, but he's like pushing her to press the button. And then at the very last minute, Linguini returns, and he becomes the charades partner, and they lose.
So who's Linguini? Is it Remy's Linguini that returns, or Annie's Mr. Linguini?
The Remy's Linguini.
Okay, I like it.
The Linguini dog is fine.
Okay, completely
They've
not
just stolen
involved.
a person.
Well, I love that. I also like the idea. What if we just switch the Linguinis? What if in this crossover the dog just goes.
I get it wrong.
The dog just goes with Remy, and Remy's trying to move this little pug's hands to operate in the kitchen, and Anne just has a redheaded
man curled up at her.
That she just, she found him off the streets. He's a rescue, but she loves him just the same. I love that.
Really nice. And then my final one was, after all of this waiting, Annie goes on the show, and they're testing new hosts. So she doesn't even get to meet the guy, and she meets like Anderson Cooper, who she has no personal stake in.
I love that. They're in the post Alex Trebek phase of just getting whoever's in there. Whoever wants to ask the questions. I like it. Okay. Did we want to do any role for remakes?
Whatever you want to do.
Let's do one.
Okay.
Together.
I'm gonna roll, okay?
Yes.
Okay. 10. Brooke, put yourself in the film.
Ooh, okay. I could be like working at the nursing home.
Oh, I
Where
was thinking you're Mrs. Franklin. I don't even know if he was married, but
Benjamin well, didn't that's something else I was gonna bring up. Didn't Ben Franklin have like a weird sex life, or is this just like
I
an
thought he
internet
had like a
rumor?
lot of
He had a lot of
French hookers or
orgies.
something.
He had like
Yeah.
a lot of orgies. Like Ben Franklin was a man of many talents. Like he was coming up with a lot of stuff, but
He was coming
he was
up
also coming a
quite a
lot.
bit.
I think he literally led like a sex party swinger lifestyle.
Then
Okay,
you're one of the swingers.
no, I think I'm either at the nursing home that the mom escaped from, and I think I'm like the unfortunate person who was on like watch duty that day and I like get fired immediately. Like
Mm.
I think I'm the person I'm supposed to be like sitting at the door watching all the elders, making sure they don't wander. And she just slipped like right past my reach. And then, okay, I'm forming a whole story for myself. So that's where I start out. And then because I let Mrs. Mom, what's her last name? Yum? Mrs. Yum? Because I let her wander off into her destiny with Kevin, I am fired, but then I quickly go back to the temp agency, which then I am reassigned to the Ben Franklin Hotel.
And then you
Hotel
get
and
fired, and
spa.
then you're a CIA code breaker.
Yeah, and then I'm a CIA code breaker. Also from the temp agency. They famously hire exclusively from temp agencies. And then I'm sitting in the room with the guy that was playing charades and Jenny's ex-boyfriend. So I'm hanging out
Awkward.
with the bros. But Marriya, where would you put yourself?
I work in the floor below Annie, and I'm seen in the background.
Okay.
Just maybe in an elevator.
I like it. So I like how I made myself a background character, but I'm still actively engaged in the story. You made yourself an extra, Marriya.
I'm like, oh, cool, that's the girl.
Okay, so you have one line.
No, I think it.
Okay, you can see it in your face though. You're standing at the water cooler. You're like, oh, hey, oh, that's the girl. Yeah. Okay. I like it. Okay, do we want to do one more for each of us?
Sure. People get therapy. Who would you give
Oh
therapy?
God, they genuinely need this. It's shocking the amount of times that like a BetterHelp ad would really would really change
I
the
would give it
course.
I would give it to that dog who always needs to be rubbed and see maybe if that comes from birth or someplace else.
I would not go the obvious route. I would give it to the general manager of the Choochies because I think that he is hurting after this lawsuit. Whoever was,
I would give it to the fish bone that was choked on.
that fish one became famous.
He was like, is everything my fault? He's constantly blaming himself.
Yeah, he's just like sitting in a little pile in the dumpster of Choochies, just thinking to himself how many millions he just cost his his owner, his distributor. But yeah, I think I'm giving it to Choochies general manager because they came under a lot of fire from like the owner that day. And they were probably fired. They probably need help. So yeah.
Brooke, what have you been watching?
Great performance. What have I been watching? I've been trying to watch Frozen for the last couple days and I've only gotten like 20 minutes in at a time because my roommate unequivocally refuses to watch it with me. And then yesterday, what was the name of that movie? Shoot, what was it? Oh fuck. I don't know.
Describe it.
It's an apocalypse movie.
Oh god.
Apocalypse
2012?
movie with Ethan Slater. Slater, is that a name? No. Ethan Slater, is that Ariana Grande's
Yeah.
That's not who it is. What was the name of it? I need to phone a friend.
Hello?
What was the name of the movie we watched last night?
I have no idea.
Can you look on our recently watched? It was on Prime, right? Battle Los Angeles. That's what it was. It wasn't great.
Who did Los Angeles battle?
Like aliens. It wasn't good. It was okay. Who's the Aaron Eckhart? Why did I think his name was Ethan Slater? I don't know.
Even close.
I don't know where that came from. Aaron Eckhart, it's like a military movie. So here, let me talk about it. So I have very distinct taste when it comes to apocalypse movies, and I can break them down into like many subcategories because I've seen so many. So it's apocalypse slash natural disaster slash just chaotic disaster movies in general. And I like natural disaster a la 2012, that movie, which it was just there was like the anniversary of 2012. The movie came out like I don't know how many years ago, 14 years ago or something. So those are my favorite ones, where it's, and specifically I most like ordinary people trying to survive extraordinary circumstances. That's like the tagline of Brooke's favorite films, are ordinary people surviving extraordinary circumstances. And I'll differentiate that from like military people like surviving extraordinary circumstances. I don't know why, but I feel like it's because I'm genuinely, yes, that was why we watched it. I do feel, I think I like the ordinary people one because there is like, even though these are completely unrealistic, never in my life would happen, I am like subtly like taking notes. Like I'm someone that has just enough anxiety.
It's siblings and then disaster.
I'm an observer in general. And I am like jotting down some mental notes here. I have like just enough anxiety in me that I'm like, well, like better watch these movies, you know, just in case. So I really like disaster ones, like, and the cheesier the better. So like 2012, the pinnacle of that. Like San Andreas with The Rock. Like all of these are good ones. And then this one was specifically a military like group surviving an alien invasion. Which go, you know, military we watched because it was Veterans Day. And I was like, this one's for the boys in camo. I was like, this one's for you guys. Let me watch this movie. And the actor Aaron Eckhart, who I thought was Ethan Slater, not in appearance, just by name, he looks like he has served time. Like I feel like he has been in so many military movies. Not prison time, like military time. He has served on a 24-hour clock. But he just has like such a face. He looks like he is a veteran. I don't know if he is, but I feel like he's played in a lot of military movies. He could have only played in one, but it just feels like he's been in many. So I watched.
That face has seen war.
He does. He looks battle worn. I don't know what it is about him. So we watched that. It wasn't very good. Oh, the day before that we watched Scorpion King, which isn't Scorpion King. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you said that it's like a tangent, like a sub-series,
spin-off.
Yeah, like a spin-off of a mummy movie that the Scorpion King was in. He was like the antagonist in it. I don't know, but we watched it. I haven't seen the film that this originated from. This was the first.
You haven't seen the second mummy movie?
I don't think so. But I haven't. Okay. I only saw this first movie of the spinoff, and oh boy, was that just
why would
horrible.
You start there?
Because it said it was the first one, and then only later did I put together. I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure Marriya said something with a Scorpion King was like her favorite something, and then I googled it.
No.
I thought you said
first off, no.
Something you said that. What was it that you said?
The first mummy movie is the best mummy movie.
I don't know. I'm all sorts of confused.
Yeah, I Yeah, I'm getting that.
But anyways, we watched that one and it was horrible. Just no. You
Well, watch
said
Mummy
you
too.
said that the mummy where they come back and it's like the old people playing it was your favorite. You said that at some
What
point.
old people playing it?
Like Brendan Fraser old and they have replaced the woman with a different woman.
No, that's Mummy
Yes.
3 and that's the worst one.
Oh. Maybe I mixed up
What are you talking about?
maybe I mixed up favorite for least favorite.
Yeah.
And I guess the scorpion wasn't even in that one.
No.
Um, okay. Well, then anyways, this is a pointless conversation. Scorpion King was awful. It was so bad. It was
Watch
so
Mummy 2. That's your homework.
it was so bad. I don't even know if I can bring myself to do it, but
He's not even in it that much.
that's a blessing. That's for the best because this was horrible. It
But the
was like
CGI is a lot worse because they like rushed it. So he looks awful in it.
yeah.
In The Mummy 2. I don't know. I've never seen Scorpion King.
He looks awful in Scorpion King too. It's like as soon as Dwayne Johnson like had some hair growing out of him in this film and his hair is long and luscious, it's like all acting abilities went out the window. It's like the bald head fuels his performance. But yeah, so I watched that. And I don't know. I think that's it. I've talked for long enough. What have you been watching?
Um, I went to see the Eras tour in theaters.
Did you?
Yes.
How was it? Were people screaming?
It was well, like no, like they were supposed to I understand if you were like excited or whatever, and some people like sang along, but just for like maybe 6 songs or something, the people in front of us just stood up. And they didn't sing along, they didn't dance, they just stood, and
They weren't even like swaying?
no, and then when the song ended, they just promptly sat.
It was like mass. It was like church. They literally were like everyone
It was like
everyone
rising
rise.
for the judge, yeah.
All rise. They did it. They like sang they literally thought they were at church. The choir sang their song, Taylor Swift did her piece, and then they sat right back down.
It was so odd. We didn't understand what was going on. And then like because we had made friendship bracelets beforehand because we thought maybe people wanted to exchange them. No one did. My sister brought like a loom so we could make friendship bracelets while we were in the theater. And so we were doing that and no one wanted to trade with us.
I'm sorry, how big is a loom? In my mind, the looms I
It
have
was like
seen,
a travel size loom.
she has her pocket loom. How often does she do this?
Well, it's like a bracelet loom of like those like rubber bands that link together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and she had one for each of us. So we were looming in there and no one wanted it. And I mean, I didn't know all the songs. So like I couldn't super get into it for every single one. Like, especially when we get into like Evermore Midnights, that's not really my era. But I was also in like a really emotional mood. So I was like sobbing throughout all of it. I don't know why, but I was like, that's so beautiful. Look at the costume change. Like, look at the dancer with the body roll. I don't know. I was like openly sobbing. And then I did continue to watch or like listen to Taylor Swift music ever since. I'm really big on Reputation right now, which was never my favorite album. But that might be the next one that she releases for Taylor's version. So yeah, I saw that. It was definitely an experience. And I thought that my sister and I were dressing up. There was a miscommunication there because I went super dressed up and she went in a shirt.
Oh no. What era
like a
did
sweater.
you dress up as?
I went as Red.
Okay.
Red, which was also very like I feel like they didn't do very much of Red, but that's okay. Yeah, so that was an experience. I think I might be a Swiftie now.
Yeah,
I
I for sure.
And then I watched Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, which is like the second animated one. Which it's been a while now since I saw it, but it was good. I mean, it's like I think a lot of the like, I mean, it's definitely good animation. It was good story of like, I'm not really big on like the multiverse stuff, but I
Mhm.
think they did it well and enough with like enough humor that it wasn't annoying. Um, but like I think it's important to note that it's like part one or something of two, because it just like they didn't really leave with anything like accomplished or
Mhm.
anything. So um it's definitely like a setup. So I feel like I can't necessarily pass judgment on it until I see part two,
Mm.
because sometimes movies will do that like setup where nothing really happens, and then the second one, nothing really happens. Fantastic Beasts. And
I
on
never
that,
even finished The Fantastic Beasts.
I
I
mean, it's still going, I think.
I know, but I never even watched the third
That's
one.
okay. The third one was better than the second. The second one made me question life. But Jason Schwartzman is in that as well, which we've already talked about, that guy. Which is why I didn't bring him up for the
Nepotism.
movie.
Oh.
Yeah. So Coppola, big Coppola guy. Haley Steinfeld, her paternal uncle, is fitness trainer and actor Jake Steinfeld. He runs the Body for Jake brand.
Body for
And
Jake. That's
yeah, Body by Jake.
oh,
Sorry,
okay.
Body
That
by
makes
Jake.
more sense.
Donate your
It's
body to Jake.
it's like
It's not just
you go
science.
to the
It's for Jake.
DMV and it's like your options for they're like, "Do you wanna be an organ donor?" "Yes." And then it's like, "Do you wanna be a Jake donor?" You're like, "I've never seen this option before." And they're like, "Don't
But
worry
sign
about
me
it.
up.
This body is for Jake."
And then her first cousin is actress True O'Brien, who appeared in a television commercial when Haley Steinfeld was 8 years old, inspiring her to try acting as well. She's like big on like Days of Our Lives, and she played Justin Bieber's model girlfriend in like a bunch of ads. So big Nepo baby. And then I watched A Haunting in Venice, the new Poirot Agatha Christie
Mhm.
movie, which was not good. It's
No.
just I don't know. I don't know why we keep on giving these elaborate backstories to like Poirot. Like the first one was good. I mean, the first one wasn't good. Murder on the Orient Express. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, it was fine. Like it didn't go super in depth into Poirot, which was, I think, for the better. The second one goes like way too in depth. Like he has an origin story, which was not necessary. The third one, it's like, here's Poirot again, but now he's on drugs. And that wasn't necessary. But it's like a Halloween ghost version, and they're like throwing this party for orphans, but as soon as they like let them into their little mansion, they're like, you orphans might die. And they're like,
What?
yeah, it's really bizarre. Um, So wasn't the biggest fan, and like my sister had read the book that it's based on, and it's not at all like the book. They just like, I don't know. And I feel like that is like a little pompous when you're dealing with like the queen of murder mystery, like Agatha Christie, and you feel like you can like enhance or like change the plot of an Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, it was so easy to guess because it wasn't an Agatha Christie. Um, and then I watched the miniseries All the Light We Cannot See
I've heard
on
good stuff.
Netflix. Yeah, it was good. I mean, it's one of my favorite books. So not at all like the book really, um, but definitely emotional. It was also kind of annoying because I really like Mark Ruffalo as an actor. Like his performance in Spotlight um was brilliant, and I think he should have won an Oscar, whatever. His performance in this, absolutely awful.
Oh
He
no.
sounded like the Hulk. Like he sound like it
Was
was like
he?
no, but someone commented that like, because one of the things they did is they like hired actual like blind people to play blind roles, which was yay for the like minimum doing the minimum. But then someone said, and pushed the envelope by also hiring an actual hearing impaired person to be Mark Ruffalo's accent coach.
Oh no.
It was
What
really
accent was he
awful.
trying to do?
French, maybe. It was really bad. It was one of the worst things. So we can hire, I guess, blind people, but not French people. I don't know.
They're
That's
like,
where we draw the
we
line.
draw the line at the French. They were like, absolutely not.
Because they hired because it's about Nazis and the war and everything. So they hired actual German people, but then they're like, fuck the French.
I like that hard stance.
And then it was Diwali over the weekend. So we watched our Diwali movie, which is A Little Princess, which is the story of the little white girl in India.
Interesting.
Which I don't know what that says about me and my family, but that's what we watch every year. Because there's nothing like celebrating Diwali by hearing a little white girl mistell the story. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's like, what an interesting choice. So the actual, I mean, there is an Indian character, but I don't know if he has any lines. He just stands there and then a sitar plays.
Great. It sounds like maybe not fully representative of.
It's a good film. It's a good film if you have never seen it. It also has.
I read the book.
But it also has Sir Davos from Game of Thrones as the dad. Yeah. And so I mean it's a family favorite, especially around the holiday season. But the main character is an heiress, and when she was a first-year student at Columbia, she filed a $6 billion lawsuit against her father and her older cousins for her money and for her brother's money. And she ended up getting $280 million in cash and were given more control over other trusts valued at about $170 million each.
Hell
and
yeah.
So she has not gone back to acting.
Yeah, neither would I.
I think she just charity stuff now though. So
that's nice.
Anything else to add, Brooke?
Nothing else to add. Where can they find us?
They can find us at Remake Hot Take on all accounts. Please look up our TikTok because the TikTok gods have declared that we are bad, and we aren't. We aren't. We don't condone drugs. We've never done drugs.
Do we condone bears doing drugs though? I might
at a certain age.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if they're able to consent.
If it's legal in their state, then yeah. Where can they find you, Marriya?
They can find me at marriyaschwarz on all accounts. Brooke, where can they find you?
They can find me at B_VCcup on Instagram. That's it for us.
Bye.
Bye.